Chapter 1. We are all energy. In order to understand your Lightworker soul, we have to begin with where you came from. Source. Source is an all-knowing, all-powerful entity that dwells in every crevices of the universe. Source is where we all come from, and where we will all eventually return. Source is our creator. It's Allah, Buddha, Yahweh, you, me. What is God's real name after all? Source is also entirely neutral. The concept of good and bad does not exist within Source. Above all things, Source offers unconditional love. Regardless of your exceptions, beliefs, or faults, Source will love and accept all living creatures equally. Source is made up of energy. You can think of it as somewhat like the electricity in your home. You can turn it on and it lights up your house, or you can shut it off and you will be sitting in darkness. But that electricity is always there, regardless of the position of your light switch. Everything you know is connected through this divine frequency. Basically, you can think of Source energy as the common connection of the entire universe. It is what connects every single thing in the entire universe with every other thing in the entire universe, from huge things such as solar systems right down to the tiniest atom. It's in things that we ordinarily think of as living, man, animals, trees, and plants, as well as in things we don't normally think of as being alive, rocks, the ocean, the sky, and the stars. Source energy also isn't constrained by time. Within it, all things, past, present, and future, exist together, complete. That means that it also connects us with those who have died. Because Source energy penetrates all objects, psychics can receive information from the energy held in an object, an ability called psychometry. Metal is especially energy absorbent. As a psychic medium, I've done many readings for people who will hand me a ring or necklace that belonged to a relative who has departed. Within that object is residual energy left from the person who wore it. Riah and Anna. Death didn't break their connection. When a young woman named Riah came to see me for a reading one day, she placed a plain band of silver on my desk. "Can you give me information on this ring?" she asked. As I held the ring, my hand became hot, almost as if I were holding my hand over an open flame. It tingled and burned. "I feel heat," I said impulsively, shocked at the intensity of the heat. As I began to ask my guides what the message was, I saw visions of flames and then flashes of a house on fire. I could hear the cries of children and the sounds of chaos. The visions, the sounds, and the extreme heat all together began to overwhelm me. "There's a house fire related to this ring," I said. "Yes," Riah confirmed. Then I heard the name Anna, and suddenly the spirit of a young woman appeared standing beside Riah. "Tell her I'm okay. Tell her everything is okay and to be happy," the spirit communicated. "Anna is here," I told Riah, not knowing who Anna was yet. "She says that she is okay. Everything is okay." Tears started to flow down Riah's cheeks. Then she started to sob, placing her head in her hands. Empathetically, I could feel that these tears came from the deepest place in her soul, from wounds only this powerful kind of tears could heal. I placed the ring down and rubbed Riah's shoulders, allowing her to cry. I could feel old internal wounds being healed as we sat together. When she could speak again, Risa explained that she had had a twin sister named Rosanna, who everyone in the family called Anna. Risa and Anna's mother raised the girls by herself, and she had a long history of alcoholism. She spent many nights at the local tavern, leaving the girls home alone to care for themselves. Risa and Anna had always looked out for one another, feeling that they basically had only each other to count on. When the girls were 13, the house's outdated electrical system shorted out one night, igniting a fire. As the girls slept, the house filled with smoke and was soon engulfed in flames. The fire department managed to rescue Risa, who was badly burned, but Anna died trapped in the girls' attic bedroom, wearing the ring Risa brought with her to the reading. Risa's mother had given the ring to Risa at Anna's funeral. Since that time, Risa never took it off. She always assumed that this plain silver band was all that was left of her twin sister. Risa carried the scars of that night, both physically and spiritually. The pain and guilt of living through the fire and not being able to save her sister had plagued her for the past 18 years. For Risa to hear Anna say that she was okay and that she wished Risa happiness was an enormous weight being lifted off of Risa's back. We continued to dialogue with Anna for a while, and Anna went on to say she had watched over Risa for all these years. She told me of having been with Risa when Risa's son was born, and she how she had watched over her nephew as well. It was like a happy family reunion. Risa was glad to know that Anna was happy in the spirit world and to hear that Anna had become the teacher she'd always dreamed of being, except that instead of teaching children on earth, Anna now worked with children who had crossed over. Communicating like this takes a lot of energy for those in the spirit world, and the communication eventually began to fade as Anna was pulled back, but not before she told us that she would lovingly watch over her sister until they met again in the afterlife. As the reading came to an end, the spirit of the brown-spotted dog entered the room and sat at Risa's feet. We lost our Springer Spaniel in the fire as well, Risa said, wiping away tears. I think I just found her, I replied. She's sitting at your feet. This story illustrates another quality of energy. It never dies, it just changes its form. Anna hadn't ceased to exist when she died in the fire. The energy within her just took a different form. And in this new form, she was still connected through source energy to Risa and to her ring, which we could use to communicate with her. Because of these all-powerful energetic connections, we were able not only to contact Anna, but also to gain information that was extremely healing for Risa. It was truly a magical experience for both of us. We're all in this together. Within the source energy is the formula that set the earth on its axis and allows it to constantly turn. That causes the sun to rise and set, and that gives us the ability to create life. It is the same energy that allowed Risa and Anna's story to be assessed. The fact that the sun rises and sets each day is not random. All the little things we see each day and take for granted are precisely planned out by Source. Source also has intelligence, even though it doesn't have a physical body the way we do. To understand this, think for a minute about your own mind. It certainly has a physical form, your brain, but the brain really only a transformer. An organ that computes information really is only a transformer. An organ that computes information. Where does the information come from in the first place? Where do our thoughts originate? They all come from Source. And because we are all connected to Source energy, we all share a small piece of its divine intelligence. And so we all have the power to access it whenever we wish to. Because this Source energy is the life force that fuels the human experience, would it allow us to believe that we have the power to be godlike? It is true that this energy, in its purest, most evolved form, is so awesome that it is beyond the comprehension and understanding of any human. But the gift every one of us is given when we take our first breath on this planet is to take in the smallest fraction of that power that we can imagine. And even with just that small fraction, we have the capacity to literally move mountains. Most of us do not use this power to its full potential because we don't believe we can, or we don't have the desire. Lightworkers have come here expressly to harness this Source energy and use it for good. But it is there for everyone, whether they realize it or not. Think of the story of the woman who lifted the car to save her child who was being crushed underneath. What gave this woman this sudden superhuman strength? The desire to save her child was so overpowering that it superseded the constraints of her physical body. The truth is that just as the woman lifted the car, we can literally move mountains if we have the desire and we believe we can. Free will grants us the power to use this energy as we wish. Think of it this way. Imagine that your life is one big roadmap and Source set you on a certain course. If you take an aerial view of the path that is set up for you, you see that there are turns, certain hazards, and dead ends. Each road has a different destination, passing different things to see, and leading those who travel it to encounter different people. But because you live on the ground, the earth, you don't generally get to see this aerial view. So you cannot see what lies around the bends of each road as it twists and turns. That's where free will comes in. Source may have plotted the route for you, but free will gives you the ability to alter the course and choose which route to take, not knowing for sure exactly where the journey will lead. Each potential path holds the power to shape your life in different ways. And because we're all connected by Source energy, as our individual paths and lives shift, we also are ever so slightly, and sometimes not so slightly, shifting the energy of everyone and everything else on the planet. Because we are all connected to the same energy, what affects one of us affects all of us. Here's another way to look at it. Think of all of us here on the earth as petals on one flower, and then think about how each petal contributes to the beauty of that flower. What if one petal becomes damaged? It would definitely change the flower's appearance, and if the damage was severe enough, the flower might not even survive. Being a part of the collective energy works the same way. One petal cannot be harmed without affecting the whole. Within the collective, each and every one of us is significant to the balance of Source energy. As we begin to understand this concept more fully, we can see that Source energy actually requires and actively seeks balance to keep all the forms of life that it contains in perfect alignment. Because Source is perfection, when the energy that it is made up becomes unbalanced, everything ends up wobbling. Light energy, the power to heal. One type of energy that source energy contains is light energy, all the free-flowing beauty of the universe. Light energy doesn't weigh us down. It lifts our spirits and elevates our general state of being. This is the type of energy lightworkers use to heal the world, although you don't have to be a lightworker to use light energy. One way we can experience this on a tangible level here on Earth is through appreciating the beauty of nature. Another is through loving others. Yet another is creating art or music. What all of these experiences have in common is emotion. We have the power through our minds to actually manifest light energy through what we think, our thoughts, and how we think it, our intentions. Our minds are directly connected to Source. Our brain is the computer that interrupts and stores the information. When we do manifest light energy through our minds, the effects resonate throughout the universe like ripples in a pond after a stone is tossed into it. The Lightworker is composed of more light energy like a laser beam to protect and heal, using various forms of energy medicine such as Reiki, therapeutic touch, or even acupuncture. The perfect example of how this works involves a story about my mother, who has always searched out new ways to access the power of source energy. Back in the 1960s, when she worked as a second-grade teacher in a Catholic school, she even found a way to incorporate her love of the mystical into the classroom without anyone else on the staff, including the principal, knowing that she was reaching beyond the usual lesson plans. She was like an undercover metaphysical agent. When a child in her classroom was sick, for example, she'd instruct the children to sit in the circle on the floor. "We're going to have a prayer circle to make Johnny better," my mom would whisper. "I want you all to picture Johnny inside a warm, bright, white light surrounded by healing energy. Then picture him well and playing kickball in the schoolyard with you all." Because she called it a prayer circle instead of a healing circle, it seemed quite natural to the children. When the sick child would recover quickly and return to school, the children would be so proud to see the results of their work. She always felt that the children were the most powerful of manifestors because their minds were so open and unaffected by what society tells us is and is not possible. She warned me never to take away a child's belief in Santa Claus, fairy tales, or magic, because those beliefs only lent themselves to believe in bigger, more powerful things, such as the power to heal. The ability to believe that the most powerful gift we have, she told me, and children have this gift naturally. One of the boys in her class suffered from childhood leukemia, and my mother conducted daily healing sessions for him with the class for weeks. After 2 months of treatment, the boy returned to school. The doctors had not expected him to make it, and his full recovery was nothing short of miraculous. My mother cried tears of joy seeing him running and playing kickball in the schoolyard again, and she was convinced that the second-grade healing circle was imperative to his recovery, proving that miracles do occur if we can just access light energy from Source. Dark energy, the one thing light energy can't exist without. We may tend to think that the dark energy is bad, which is not exactly true. Without nightfall, the daybreak would never come, and without sorrow, we would not truly appreciate the feeling of joy. To think that source is all light would be a misconception. Because source energy is neutral and all-encompassing, it must also include the darkness. Source energy is a double-edged sword that can penetrate our lives in different ways. Our free will allows us to wield it in whatever way we choose, and most of us choose to use it for different things at different times, even if we're not aware that we're actually making that choice at the time. Source accepts both light and dark equally, wrapping them both in a blanket of unconditional love and support, because unconditional love is all Source knows. Dark does not necessarily mean evil, although there is evil within the universe. Dark is a state of being, like the grief that we endure when we lose a loved one, or the feeling of being lost and alone when nothing seems to be going right in our lives. Evil, on the other hand, is dark energy that is acted on with intention, such as committing murder out of feelings of hate or rage. One of the important values in dark energy is that it can push us, motivating us to seek out the light. It's like being in the shade of a tree on an early spring afternoon. We can stay there for only so long before we begin to feel cold. And then we want to step out of the shadows and into the sunlight to feel warm and energized. So the dark, kept in proper perspective, deserves our respect and appreciation. Both dark and light energy are equally accessible to us here on earth, and we can access the power of either with our intentions to heal or harm. Intentions are the originators of our actions and have a much greater effect than most people realize. So, for example, if someone were to start a foundation for increasing awareness about environmental causes, and if one person was informed by our foundation, then the founder's intention would have been achieved, even if the foundation were to go under the very next day. The energy around the foundation would be light energy, even though it may look on the outside as though the foundation was a failure. On the other hand, if someone were to perform a good deed but does it begrudgingly, then the true feelings under the action, the person's resentment or malice, will taint the energy around the deed. The person will be bringing dark energy to the deed, even though on the outside it looks as though the person has done a good thing. The intention affects the energy more than the action. Because source energy lives in all of us and connects all of us, intention, not action, is what creates the biggest shift in source energy. Action can shift energy. Of course, we live in a physical world after all, but it's the intention behind the action that matters most. Our world is more energetic than most of us realize, and just because we can't see this with our physical eye doesn't mean it isn't so. Case in point, you can't see gravity either. You can only see its effect. You can boil all of this down to the wise old adage, we reap what we sow. In this matter, we are constantly directing source energy, be it light or dark, into tangible form through our thoughts, actions, and most of all, intention. We can manifest consciously or unconsciously, which means our intentions have this effect whether we realize it or not. If we are aware of how this works, then it's easier to change our thoughts. Just as positive, loving thoughts, light energy, through the ripple effect of our intentions manifest good, negative thoughts and emotions, dark energy, manifest negative outcomes. They bring destruction, hatred, sickness, and suffering, all in the natural course of the energetic flow. Think of it as a simple consequence rather than divine retribution. Just as you receive a shock when you stick your finger in a light socket, the jolt isn't delivered because you deserve it. So if what you experience comes from the energy that you put out there, light energy creating positive experiences and dark energy creating negative experiences, then the question arises, from what type of energy do you want to create your reality? Letting in more light. Your thoughts not only change your own personal reality, but that of the entire universe. Each time we send out a good thought or blessing, we shift the universal energy. Within each prayer is the power to heal the world, just as every oak tree you've ever seen, no matter how big it is, grew from a relatively humble-looking acorn. Each time we love another living creature, we tip the scales of the universal energy toward the light. In this way, our positive thoughts accelerate the positive energy of the universe. This is the goal of the Lightworker. Here's another way to look at that process. Each time we take part in all that is good, we perform an act of God. Most of us have grown up hearing that we have been made in God's image. The true meaning of that isn't physical, but metaphysical. The truth it reflects is that the power of God lives inside each and every one of us. Many of us go through our entire lives without knowing how powerful we really are. It's easy to see how this can happen, though, because we're used to thinking that action is the hard part. But once you realize the true power of intention, you make an important shift in perspective. You start to see the nuances of this truth as well, that acts of kindness performed robotically or in a self-serving manner will never achieve an energetic shift. Without the realization that all good deeds must be carried out with the purest of intentions for the greater good of all mankind, you will never create the shifts in your own life that you desire. Incorporating more light energy from Source into our lives requires making conscious choices about our thoughts and our general state of being. Because every emotion translates into energy, the more we allow light energy to flow throughout our lives with positive emotions, the more light we create and the happier and more fulfilled we will be. The aware Lightworker will naturally gravitate toward this because that is the very reason all Lightworkers are here. But Lightworkers who are unaware of their true spiritual nature can have greater challenges with this. They may feel excessively drained or exhausted because their sensitivity absorbs dark energies like a sponge. They often feel as though they're in the middle of a tug of war. It's not easy being a Lightworker. Being ever vigilant and making conscious choices to attract and reflect light is extremely important. Everyone can learn to do this, even those who are not Lightworkers, because this light energy is available to all. In fact, people who do not harbor much light energy because they feel depressed or stagnant can learn to draw more light energy into their lives to lift their depression and dissipate their lethargy. This will bring them more vitality, better physical health, and overall better state of mind, all of which will help them manifest the life they were put here for. They may have the $1 million mansion or the 100-foot yacht, but it will be the life they came here to live. This will then add more light to the collective. Oceans of emotion. Whether you consider yourself a Lightworker or not, You can create more light energy by living in a state of positive emotion. Examples of these light-inducing emotions are love, gratitude, forgiveness, kindness, acceptance, generosity, tolerance, understanding. Conversely, we create dark energy when we live in a state of negative emotion. Examples of negative emotions that create dark energy are hatred, fear, intolerance, greed, apathy, lust, and envy. Drawing from the emotions that are made up of light energy can be very difficult or very easy. It's simply a matter of using our free will to align with the light and then making choices after choice that will keep us in that alignment. Getting off course every once in a while is to be expected. But those who are able to stay in the light most of the time can do so only by using the power of their intention to consistently make that choice. My client, Marion, learned this after her 27-year-old son, William, was found dead. She described him as smiling boy who grew up loving baseball and collecting frogs down at the lake. William had idolized his father and wanted to grow up to be an auto mechanic just like his dad. But William's father wasn't a happy person like her son. He battled addiction his entire life. He had been in inpatient treatment centers, 12-step programs, and support groups, and had been in recovery several times, but he always fell back into using drugs. He seemed at war with addiction and was never able to overcome it. When William was 16, his father took a bus to New York City to buy drugs and never returned. He was missing for a week before the police identified his body and called to inform William's mother that her husband had died on a bus from a bad batch of heroin. After his father passed, William began to change. During the next several years, he became angry, felt victimized, and blamed others when things didn't go his way. He eventually moved out on his own. A few years later, he was found dead, alone in his apartment. The cause wasn't immediately apparent, and Marion came to see me to get some answers about what had happened. I linked with William in spirit, and he showed me an image of a boy and his father running and happily playing frisbee. I explained the scene to Marion, and she explained that William and his father played ball and frisbee many times at the neighborhood park. Then, like a flash, what I saw changed. I was shown images of dark creatures and what looked like demons struggling to be freed. It immediately came to my mind that William had fought his father's demons. He was showing me that, like his father, he had lost the battle. I gave Marion the information that William died of a drug overdose, just like his dad. She seemed shocked, yet when the autopsy was completed, it showed that William had purposely overdosed on sleeping pills prescribed by his doctor. What happened to the smiling boy Marion once knew? What went wrong? William let the pain and tormented energy of his father's penetrate his own life. Why did he choose to take on his father's demons instead of separating himself from his father? He could have just as easily learned the lesson that drugs will kill you. Instead, he never took responsibility for his own life. He dwelled on the negatives so much that they became his dominant energy. He allowed the same dark energy that had surrounded his father to penetrate his own life, eventually destroying him. William always had a choice, but he didn't realize it. Source never stopped giving him unconditional love and support. He could have made a conscious decision to use light energy like what he had experienced as a happy child playing frisbee with his dad. But when his dark moods started to overwhelm him, he used his free will to turn away from the light instead of using his free will to reach out to the light to help him. But when William chose to swallow that fistful of pills, it didn't release him from the dark energy that surrounded his life. Because our essence is created by energy, the energy we harbor doesn't change when we depart this lifetime. We carry it with us when we cross over. And it makes quite a difference to our transition. Just as it does when we are alive, our energy dictates where we go and what we do after we pass. And because we are still connected to everyone and everything through source energy, our dominant energy, light or dark, continues to affect the balance of what happens here on Earth. Now, let's take a closer look at dark energy and what specific steps we can take to free ourselves from it, as well as how Lightworkers can help free others, both living and dead, from dark energy's grip.